What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved comedians, a man who has built a billion-dollar empire on making people laugh, walks into what should have been a routine morning talk show appearance, only to find himself face to face with a host who seems determined to tear him down on live television? It's the scenario publicists have nightmares about, the kind of unscripted drama that network executives simultaneously fear and crave. We imagine these icons of entertainment existing in a bubble of mutual admiration, where promotional tours are gentle, softball lobbing sessions filled with canned anecdotes and practiced charm. But what occurs when that bubble is violently popped? When the carefully constructed facade of celebrity civility shatters, revealing the raw, unfiltered clash of massive egos and deeply opposed worldviews? Well, you're about to find out exactly how explosive things can get when the cameras are rolling, the red lights are on, and one person in the room decides that today is not for playing nice. This is not a story of a simple misunderstanding or a minor on-air tiff. This is the story of Adam Sandler's appearance on The View that had everyone talking, a televised train wreck so captivating and brutal that it would be dissected for weeks in gossip columns, on social media, and around office water coolers. It was a moment that laid bare the often unspoken tensions between different forms of success, between critical acclaim and popular appeal, and between the creator and the critic. And trust me, the journey from a standard sunny morning greeting to a nuclear-level meltdown is one of the wildest rides in modern television history. It was supposed to be just another stop on the well-trodden promotional circuit. Adam Sandler, the perennial box office king turned Netflix juggernaut, had a new comedy streaming. The formula was familiar, effective, and rarely deviated from hit the late-night shows for some self-deprecating banter with old friends like Jimmy Fallon, do a couple of daytime spots to reach the stay-at-home parents and students playing hooky, and maybe a podcast or two for the younger demographic. The View, with its massive dedicated audience of millions, seemed like an easy win. It was a chance to chat with the ladies, crack a few self-aware jokes about his particular brand of humor, play a clip from the new film, and plug the project to a demographic that might not be scrolling through Netflix's new releases section. What could possibly go wrong? It was, in the grand scheme of Hollywood publicity, a softball pitch. Adam Sandler walked onto the bright, bustling set that morning embodying his trademark laid-back, unassuming energy. He was the anti-diva movie star, dressed in his standard uniform of simple, slightly faded polo shirt and comfortable jeans, an outfit that whispered, "regular guy," in a room often filled with designer glitz. The studio audience, a mix of tourists and dedicated fans, greeted him with a warm, enthusiastic roar. This was the Sandler they knew and loved, the goofy best friend, the hapless husband, the loyal son. He smiled, that familiar, slightly lopsided grin waved with a casual humility, and slid into his seat at the famous circular table as if he were joining friends for a coffee. The opening moments were all smooth, practiced professionalism. Whoopi Goldberg, the seasoned anchor and moderator, offered the standard pleasantries with her characteristic dry wit. "Welcome back to The View, Adam. Always good to have you here." The other hosts, Sonny Hostin, the sharp legal analyst, Sarah Haynes, the relatable everywoman, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, the voice of a younger, more politically engaged generation, all smiled warmly, their demeanors open and welcoming. The atmosphere was light, buzzing with the typical morning show chatter. Everything was proceeding exactly according to the pre-show rundown. But then the energy shifted. It was a subtle change at first, a slight tightening of the air, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye but screamingly obvious to those familiar with the show's dynamics. Joy Behar, the veteran comedian and self-appointed provocateur of the panel, leaned forward. She adjusted her microphone a fraction of an inch, and a certain glint appeared in her eyes, a look that regular viewers of the show had come to know all too well. It was the "I'm going there" look, a harbinger of the uncomfortable questions and pointed commentary that were her stock in trade. The gentle hum of conversation died down as she cleared her throat. "So Adam," Joy began, her voice carrying a deceptively casual tone that nonetheless managed to immediately put everyone on edge. It was the vocal equivalent of a predator circling its prey. "I have to ask you about something that's been bothering me for years." A faint, nervous titter rippled through the audience. Adam, a veteran of thousands of interviews, shifted almost imperceptibly in his chair. The easy smile remained plastered on his face, a professional defense mechanism honed over decades in the spotlight, but his eyes narrowed just a touch, becoming more alert, more analytical. He was a master at deflecting criticism with a joke, but he could sense this was different from the usual. "Why do you make so many silly movies?" Queries. "Oh," he chuckled, playing to the audience and breaking the tension for a brief second. "What did I do now? Did I forget to return a library book in 1997? The audience laughed, grateful for the comedic relief. But Joy was not laughing. Her expression remained stern, unamused. "It's not what you did," she replied, her words sharp and precise, like shards of glass. "It's what you continue to do." She let the phrase hang in the air, allowing its accusatory weight to settle over the set. "Don't you think it's time you started making movies for adults instead of these juvenile comedies that appeal exclusively to 12-year-old boys?" The question landed like a thunderclap. This wasn't a gentle ribbing. It was a direct, public challenge to the very foundation of his career. The other hosts around the table physically recoiled, their smiles freezing into masks of discomfort. Whoopi Goldberg, sensing the ship veering dangerously off course, attempted to jump in with a mediating laugh. "Well, now hold on, Joy," Whoopi interjected, her voice a low rumble of reason. "I think Adam's movies are fun for the whole family. There's a place for that. Not everything has to be Shakespeare." But Joy wasn't having it. She turned to Whoopi with a dismissive wave of her hand, a gesture that was both condescending and deeply unprofessional. "Come on, Whoopi, let's be serious for a moment. We're talking about a grown man who has built his entire career on bathroom humor, silly voices, and what amounts to cinematic slapstick. When is enough enough? When does the artist feel the need to challenge himself?" Adam's smile faltered for a single, unguarded moment before he recomposed himself. The cameras, ever hungry for a reaction, zoomed in close. He could feel the heat of the studio lights, the weight of millions of eyes upon him. Years of dealing with critics, from scathing reviews in prestigious publications to think pieces decrying the death of cinema at his hands, had taught him how to handle hostile interviews. He had a well-practiced arsenal of self-deprecating jokes and deflections. But this felt different. This wasn't a critic writing in a magazine. This was a personal, confrontational attack from a few feet away. Broadcast live to the world. This felt venomous. "You know, Joy," Adam said, his voice still maintaining a friendly cadence, though a steely edge had begun to creep in around the vowels. "I've been making movies for over 2 decades now, and I'm actually pretty proud of the fact that they make people laugh. All kinds of people. Kids, sure, but also their parents, grandparents. Isn't that what comedy is supposed to do? Bring a little joy into people's lives." He gestured to the audience, which responded with a supportive round of applause. Joy leaned forward, her body language aggressive, almost predatory. "But at what cost?" she shot back as if he had just admitted to a crime. "You've made hundreds of millions of dollars dumbing down entertainment. Don't you feel any responsibility to use your massive platform for something more meaningful? Something with substance?" The tension in the studio was now a physical presence, thick and suffocating. The camera operators, trained to capture drama, were in their element, swapping between close-ups of Adam's tightening jaw, Joy's smugly determined face, and the pained expressions of the other co-hosts. Sunny Hostin was studying her notes as if they contained the secrets of the universe. Sarah Haynes was nervously fiddling with her pen. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked as if she wished the floor would swallow her whole. They were trapped in a cage of their colleagues' making, forced to witness a live execution of professional courtesy. Adam took a deep, measured breath. Those who knew him well, his friends, his longtime collaborators, would have recognized the subtle shift happening in his posture. The easygoing, whatever man comedian was receding, and in his place was emerging someone else, the shrewd businessman. The fiercely loyal friend, the man who had built an empire from the ground up and who wasn't going to let anyone disrespect the kingdom he had built. He was being backed into a corner, and like any cornered animal, he was preparing to fight back. "Meaningful," Adam repeated, letting the word roll around in his mouth as if tasting its implications. "You want to talk about meaningful? Okay, let's talk. I've provided steady jobs for thousands of people in this industry over the years. Crew, actors, writers, editors. I've made movies that bring families together in a darkened theater or on their couch, giving them a shared experience, a reason to laugh together. I've created characters and quotes that kids, and let's be honest, adults too, have been repeating for decades. That sounds pretty meaningful to me." "Making people happy is meaningful," Joy actually scoffed. A loud, derisive, intentionally insulting scoff broadcast live across the nation. "Oh please," she sneered, "spare me the humanitarian act. You make lowbrow garbage and you know it. The only reason Netflix keeps giving you hundreds of millions of dollars is because your movies are cheap to produce and people, God knows why, will watch anything. It's the economics of mediocrity." That was the moment, the point of no return. You could see it in Adam's eyes the exact second the last vestige of his patience evaporated. The studio audience, which had been a murmur of uneasy reactions, fell into a dead, eerie silence. They were witnessing something unprecedented, a raw crack in the glossy veneer of daytime television. "You know what, Joy?" Adam said, his voice now carrying a cold, hard steel that surprised everyone, including perhaps himself. "I've been sitting here for 5 minutes now. And in that 5 minutes, I've listened to you attack my career, my creative choices, and basically everything I've worked for my entire adult life. And I have to wonder, what exactly is your personal problem with me? Did I run over your dog? Did I forget to laugh at one of your jokes at a party 20 years ago? What is this really about?" Joy's eyes lit up with the thrill of direct confrontation. She had drawn blood, and the scent seemed to energize her. This was the dynamic she thrived on. "My problem," she enunciated clearly, "is that you represent everything that's wrong with Hollywood today. You take the easy way out. You pander to the lowest common denominator. And you have the audacity to act like it's some kind of legitimate art form. And you think sitting behind this desk, taking cheap shots at people who actually create things, makes you better than me?" Adam fired back, his voice rising in volume and intensity. "At least when I make people laugh, I'm not tearing someone else down to do it. I'm building something up." "What are you building right now?" The other hosts were now in full-blown panic mode. Whoopi made another valiant attempt to steer the conversation back to the safety of the promotional script. "Okay, you know what? Maybe this is getting a little heated. Let's all just take a beat. Adam, why don't you tell us about your new movie? I heard it's a fun one. But Joy was a missile that had already been launched, and she was not going to be recalled. Actually, she interjected, steamrolling over Whoopi's peace offering. Let's talk about the new movie. I'm sure it's just another rehash of the same tired formula, isn't it? Put Adam in a ridiculous situation, surround him with his same old buddies, throw in some slapstick, a few cameos, and call it a day. Rinse and repeat. In a move that sent a collective gasp through the studio and the control room, Adam Sandler stood up from his chair. It was a simple action, but in the context of a seated talk show interview, it was seismic. It had never happened in the history of the program. The camera zoomed in, capturing every micro-expression on his face. The disbelief, the anger, the wounded pride, and the resolute determination. You haven't even seen the movie, he said, his voice now terrifyingly calm, a quiet fury contained just beneath the surface. You're sitting here on national television, attacking something you know nothing about. You're criticizing a book you haven't even read. Just like you attack so many other things that don't fit into your narrow, cynical little worldview. Joy's face flushed a blotchy, furious red. She had expected Adam to take the abuse like so many other celebrities who came on the show. To laugh it off awkwardly, to offer a weak defense, to play along for the sake of good TV. His direct, forceful pushback was making her look like a bully, and she absolutely despised it. I don't need to see it, she snapped, her voice losing its composure and becoming shriller. I've seen enough of your movies over the years to know exactly what this one is going to be. Predictable, childish, and utterly forgettable. The silence in the studio was now so profound you could hear the faint hum of the teleprompter. Adam looked slowly around the table at the other hosts, who refused to meet his gaze. He then looked out at the audience, seeing their shocked faces, and finally, he turned and stared directly into the main camera, connecting with every viewer sitting in their living room. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his words measured, deliberate, and dripping with contempt. This is what passes for journalism in daytime television. A host who proudly admits she hasn't seen the work she's criticizing. A person who attacks a guest for the alleged crime of making people happy. This isn't an interview. This is a public flogging. Joy's face transitioned from red to a deep, concerning purple. Being called out so directly on her own show in front of her peers and her audience was an indignity she was not prepared to handle with any semblance of grace. She slammed her open hand down on the hard surface of the table with such explosive force that the microphones peeled with feedback and everyone, including the crew, jumped. How dare you lecture me about journalism? She snarled, her finger shooting out to point directly at Adam as if it were a weapon. I've been in this business longer than you've been making your little boy movies. I don't need to watch garbage to know it's garbage. My sense of smell is just fine. Adam laughed then, but it was a hollow, mirthless sound devoid of any warmth. It was a laugh of pure, unadulterated disbelief and scorn. Wow, Joy, he said, shaking his head slowly. You just proved my point better than I ever could. You literally just said you judge things without experiencing them. You judge. That's not journalism. That's not criticism. That's prejudice, plain and simple. The other hosts were now a portrait of collective mortification. Sunny Hostin tried to jump in, her voice strained with nervous tension. Maybe we should just take a quick commercial break. Everyone just needs to cool off for a second. No, Joy snapped, not even bothering to look at Sunny. Her laser focus was entirely on Adam. We're not taking a break. We're gonna finish this conversation. I am so tired of celebrities coming on here thinking they can just charm their way through serious, substantive questions, serious questions. Adam's voice cracked with incredulous disbelief. You call these personal attacks serious questions? Here's a serious question for you, Joy. When was the last time you created something that brought genuine joy to millions of people? When was the last time you wrote something, performed something, built something from nothing that made someone's day a little bit brighter? All you do, day in and day out, is tear down what other people have created. You are a critic in the most literal, and most empty, sense of the word. The studio audience was completely polarized now. You could feel the division in the room. Some were nodding along with Adam, their faces etched with agreement. Others looked horrified, clutching their hands to their chests, shocked by the unprecedented nature of the verbal brawl unfolding before them. The camera operators were working overtime, their lenses frantically switching between the two combatants, capturing every twitch of an eyebrow and every tremor of a lip. Joy stood up now, too, mirroring Adam's posture, meeting his energy with her own escalating fury. I inform people, she declared, her voice rising to a near shout. I ask the hard questions that nobody else will ask. I hold celebrities like you accountable for the garbage they put out into the world. Accountable. Adam's voice rose to match hers, the calm facade finally breaking. Accountable for what? For making people laugh? For giving them a 90-minute escape from their bills, their health problems, their stress? You want to hold me accountable for bringing a little bit of happiness into people's lives? What a terrible crime that is. I want to hold you accountable for lowering the bar. Joy shot back, her voice becoming shriller and more piercing with each syllable. For setting a terrible example, every mindless, lowest common denominator comedy you make gives studios and streamers an excuse to greenlight 10 more just like it. You and your ilk have turned Hollywood into a creative wasteland of stupidity. Whoopi stood up, her presence commanding, her voice booming with authority. Joy, that a unit? You need to calm down right now. This is completely unprofessional and out of line. But Joy was a runaway train, and the tracks were already destroyed. She spun on Whoopi with the same venom she had been directing at Adam. Don't you dare tell me to calm down, Whoopi. He started this by refusing to answer my legitimate, straightforward questions. Legitimate questions. Adam's voice was now a roar that filled the studio. You called my life's work garbage, before I had even said a single word about the actual movie. How is that legitimate? How is that anything other than a personal, premeditated attack? The situation had devolved into pure chaos. The security team, a presence rarely needed on the set of a daytime talk show, had now appeared at the edges of the set, looking confused and hesitant. They approached a frantic producer who was standing in the wings, waving her arms and speaking rapidly into a headset, her face a mask of pure terror. Adam looked around at the scene, the screaming host, the mortified panel, the stunned audience, the hovering security. He took it all in and a sad, resigned smile crossed his face. The anger seemed to drain out of him, replaced by a profound sense of pity and disgust. You know what? You're right about one thing, Joy. He said, his voice dropping back to that dangerous calm. I should leave. But not because you're kicking me out. I'm leaving because I have far better, more productive, and more positive things to do with my time than stand here and be verbally abused by someone who is clearly having some kind of public breakdown. Breakdown. Joy's voice hit a pitch that was almost inhuman. I'm having a breakdown? You're the one who can't handle little honest criticism? You're a snowflake, just like all the other fragile celebrities? Adam was already walking deliberately toward the exit, the eyes of the nation upon his retreating back. But at Joy's final desperate insult he stopped. He paused for a beat and then slowly, deliberately turned back to face her one last time. The camera caught his profile, serious and defiant. My characters don't run away, Joy, he said, his voice clear and strong, carrying across the silent set. They face their problems head on, and they find a way to laugh through them. Maybe you should try that sometime instead of just spreading misery wherever you go. And with that, Adam Sandler turned his back for the final time and walked off the set of The View. He didn't hurry. He didn't look back. He simply exited stage left, leaving behind a vacuum of sound that was quickly filled by a rising tide of chaotic babble and Joy Behar's sputtering, incoherent rage. The studio was in shambles. The remaining hosts sat in stunned silence, unsure of where to look or what to do. The audience was buzzing, some people already on their phones, texting and posting about the unbelievable spectacle. The producer in the wings had her head in her hands, and Joy Behar was left standing alone at the table, her chest heaving, her face a grotesque mask of fury and humiliation. The camera, merciless in its duty, held on her for a long, uncomfortable moment, broadcasting every second of her meltdown to millions of homes. She had not only lost control of the interview, she had lost control of herself, her professionalism and her dignity, all in the span of 10 explosive minutes. She had tried to expose Adam Sandler as a fraud, but in the end, the only person she had exposed was herself. So there you have it, the most explosive, unscripted, and brutally honest talk show moment in recent television history. What began as a standard, sunny day promotional stop devolved into a primal clash of ideologies, a battle between creation and criticism, between joy and cynicism. It ended with one of Hollywood's most successful stars walking away with his integrity intact, and a veteran host completely self-destructing under the glare of the live television lights, providing a stark lesson in what happens when an attack dog finally meets its match. Make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories and deep dives into the most shocking moments in entertainment. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think? Was Adam Sandler right to stand up for himself and walk away, or should he have taken the high road and simply endured the criticism? Drop your comments below.